Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm your host, Simone Morris, and I have a passion for empowering others to take responsibility for their careers. Yes, I've written several books on owning your career and am loving hosting this podcast. This podcast is for you if you're willing to make a shift to the driver's seat in your career. We feature leaders who inspire, empower, and motivate you for consistent career action for results. Please continue to join us every Sunday when a new episode is released. Let's get into this week's show. Welcome to this week's episode of the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm delighted to have with us today Meena Aithal. Meena is a life coach and has a very interesting story, an interesting backstory that I think the listeners will be inspired and motivated by. So, Meena, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. And I would like to also say thank you to all the listeners who are listening.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about your journey and how you found your way to becoming a life coach.
Okay, so my journey had started back in 2004, or actually way back when. And since fourth grade, I've always wanted to be a teacher. I always wanted to teach elementary schoolers, and I would be that girl who would play school at home. And I always wanted to be the teacher. And sometimes my brother he's older, and he would end up getting to be the teacher instead. And I wouldn't like that. And so then in 2004, I became a certified early childhood teacher. So for preschool to third graders in the state of Connecticut where I live. And on and off for about 11 years, I experienced scrutiny by principals and supervisors in my role as a classroom teacher. Some of those years, I was more of a support staff trying to find my area of focus or what would fit for me. So I experienced, it was very trying times. I experienced a lot of anxiety in terms of I didn't want to get up in the day. To start my day, I would have the Sunday night scaries. I also experienced crying to work, calling my mother crying. I didn't eat enough. I would shut out the world because when I wasn't teaching, because I was so anxious about what could happen during the school day and being scrutinized. So my journey was not always pleasant as an elementary teacher.
Wow, it doesn't sound too good. I wonder, as you talk about that it sounds painful time in your life, what caused you? Are these multiple jobs in the educational industry that you still have the same experiences, or one long job that just?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So this was multiple positions. There were some within those 11 years from 2004 to 2015 that I had great experiences, but then it would either be a part-time position or I'd be a support staff. And I wanted to, because I had my certification, I wanted to be in a classroom role. And so I would go from district to district to district to try to find my right fit. And then I would keep hitting stumbling blocks, and I would even question myself, and I'd be like, why is this happening to me? And my mother, I remember on many occasions, she's my biggest supporter, my dad too, but my mother especially. And she would be she didn't know what to say. She was at a loss of words, because when your daughter is going through something like that, and I'm the baby of the family, I just have an older brother and myself, you never want that for your children. For them to be so frustrated with themselves, frustrated with their life. And I would keep constantly job hunting summer after summer, every year job hunting, either because I was not happy in a position, or they were going to possibly consider me to be terminated, and then I resigned because it wasn't the right fit. So there's many different reasons. And I would be called to the principal's office too. So as a kid, you don't want to be called to the principal's office. So imagine as a grown-up how you would. Yeah.
So what was the pivotal moment for you where you decided enough? I'm ready for something different. There must be more to life. And so you decided enough is enough. What's that pivotal moment?
So during my years in college, I worked at a local hospital as a nurse's aide. So I just basically did everything. I stocked rooms, I fed patients, and I really loved the hospital environment. So in 2014 school year, I worked for a local school district that offered Head Start. So if you don't know, or the listeners don't know what it is, it's for low-income families because preschool in the US is so outrageously expensive. And so this was government funded. And what was the pivotal moment was that year I was scrutinized yet again, called to the principal's office, the same anxieties and, crying to work, not wanting to get up, loss of appetite, and lack of confidence in myself as a teacher. So I decided I'm going to leave teaching. And I ended up applying for schooling in social work to get a master's in social work. This is after I have already a master's in teaching or in this area of reading. So I did that, but 3 weeks later, I ended up quitting the program in 2015 when I enrolled and left teaching. I ended up quitting the master's in social work program, realizing it wasn't the right fit for me. And then I was so confused, not sure what to do. And the pivotal moment was my massage therapist said, why don't you talk to a life coach? And she was at the time using the office, and it was like a road sign. I believe in road signs that are like signs the universe or God, source or power sends you that so you know you're on the right track. And this road sign was, I had her flyer. I've been looking at it, just never took the leap until she told me, why don't you talk to her?
So do you believe that the signs of the angst, or you continue to use the word scrutiny, the scrutinization in each of the positions that you have had were signs for you to pivot later on in your journey, in your career?
Definitely. But I think in the moment, I was so caught up in the anxiety, and like literally I would have a pit in my stomach day in and day out because I was so anxious and I was so worried. And those, looking back, those were signs that maybe something needed to be changed within myself, but also within my career. But I didn't realize that until I ended up working with this coach, until working with her.
So what are some of the strategies that you took from the life coaching experience that you were able to bring forward and really see a difference in your career?
Yeah, definitely. So first of all, when I had an initial call with her, it was the first call. She offered it free, like a clarity call. One of the first things she said was, do you want to stay stuck forever? And immediately I was like, absolutely not. And that's when I knew things had to change. So by working with her on and off for 2 to 3 years, in the beginning, I was more consistently working with her. We worked on a lot of mindset, clearing out the clutter in your mind, but also the clutter in your environment, because that plays a part. And then we also talked a lot about positive affirmations, and I use that myself and now as a holistic life coach with my clients. And that significantly helped. So just even, for example, I can do this. That's one of my go-to affirmations. I can do this. And the more that I started to say it to myself, the more I started to believe it, the more that I would become more confident as a teacher. And then also really getting into alignment and finding what works for me. So I left my certification program in September of 2015. Ended up working with her in October, mid to late October. And by December, I enrolled in a special education program at the college that I did my master's at, which was a better fit than my undergrad one. And then I got a third certificate in special ed, and realizing small groups is a better fit for me.
So it feels like knowing, like you have said, knowing yourself is key. What I'm hearing from you is, in terms of ingredients for successfully owning your career, is education, even though you've had to do some pivots along the way, till you found the right training or the right education for you has been game changing, as well as affirmations, using affirmations as a resource. Can you think about just holistically from where you were to where you are today? What are some of the key things or key ingredients? What would you say the formula for owning your career is?
I think the formula for owning your career is really looking at yourself and really deciding like what is going to work for you in your career. And so for me as a teacher, what works for me is small groups. So right now, I'm teaching online. So I teach a group of wonderful, amazing students who are medically can't come into school. So it's a multi-age elementary classroom. And so I'm fortunate that it's a small group. But last year I had about 30 students online in the beginning of the year. And then it dwindled down to about 20. And so it was first, second, third grade. So I structured my class knowing this in small groups. So each grade level had their time. And then when I was working with one grade level, the other students would be doing other activities on their own. And so what I'm really trying to say is really find what works for you in your career to do your job well, to be successful, but also really invest in yourself and invest in a coach or mentor that can support you. Because right now, I've worked with 4 different coaches, 2 I currently work with, and I have no problem investing in myself because I know that there's value, and I wouldn't be the person I am today if I didn't invest in those coaches. Essentially, you're not just investing in the coaches, you're investing in yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting you talk about mindset, because I think that's so important. And you alluded to affirmations, but really it's more than affirmations, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It
Just to
definitely
rework your mind.
It's definitely more than affirmations. It's rework your mind, body, and soul or spirit, however you want to look at it. So, one of the things that really helps me is to really realize, what do I want out of life? And so I'll give you an example. So one day I wasn't working with my coach at the time. We were working on and off as needed. And I went to Whole Foods, which, if you don't know, it's the health food grocery store. And I had this feeling I was going to see my first coach there, my life coach. I ended up seeing her there, which was like so crazy. She was with one of her daughters at the time. She was in preschool, and I asked her, what are you going to be doing? Because I think it was Saturday. And what are you doing the rest of the weekend? And she just was saying with so much joy on her face that she is going to be going on a date night with her husband, but she's not going anywhere. They're just having it at home, and her kids are going to her parents' house. And because she has 3 kids, and just that joy on her face carried with me. I thought about it throughout my whole grocery shopping trip, throughout driving home. And then I don't know if it was weeks or months later, I got this aha moment where I was like, Meena, what are you doing to yourself? There is so much more to life than just being anxious, being worried, wasting your days away worrying and in doubt and fear, and really love your life.
Love that. That's a great segue to a break. Love your life, everybody. We'll be right back. Hi there. I hope you're enjoying this episode. This interview is amazing. I do so love it. I want to just jump in and let you know a couple ways that you can work with me. First of all, you can always go to connectwithsimone.com, and it will give you the opportunity to get to my books, website, etc. If you want to sit down and have a conversation about your career directly, you can go to careerbreakthroughcall.com and book a free 30-minute call with me to talk about, what's happening in your career. Do you need help with building your confidence? Do you need help with identifying strategic relationships that you need for career success? Do you need help building a career plan? Whatever it is, I'm sure that I can help. So do go to careerbreakthroughcall.com and set up a time for us to have a conversation. Again, it's a free 30-minute call to have a conversation. That's it for now. Let's get back to the interview. Welcome back to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. Today we have with us life coach Meena Aithal, and we have been talking about just joy, leaning into joy, loving our life, and really, listening to the cues in our careers. And Meena, now that we're back, I want to ask you about resources. Whether it's the mindset work or just making pivots in your career or connecting with the right coaches, what resources can you recommend to our audience to help them really to level up in their careers?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the resources is a book that I read. I read it as an audiobook, and it's called Outrageous Openness, and it's by Tosha Silver. And it's a great book about trusting in the universe, or like God or source or power, whoever you choose to believe. Because again, it's all about alignment and really just trusting that everything is working out for you in the way that it's supposed to. And that really opened my eyes to a whole new perspective. I read this even after working with my first coach. I think I read it or listened to it a few years ago or a couple of years ago, and it was very, very eye-opening. And then the second thing is just to go on social media, go on websites, and really look for a mentor that's going to support you, that's going to guide you in the direction of life that you want to take. Because there are coaches like myself that can really help you. They've walked in your shoes and they can help you to get to where you want to be in a quicker amount of time. So find a coach or mentor that's going to support you, because I think that your success is going to skyrocket in a quicker amount of time if you do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. As I think back over my career, the importance of mentors, I will add sponsors to the conversation because I think sponsors is important as well. Mentors, sponsors, coaches, just really building out your success squad to make sure you have the right people around you to hold you up when you can't sit up straight or stand up straight, so to speak. Meena, if you had to title your career as a book, what would the title of the book be for your career body of work?
That is a good question. And so I would say it would be From Feeling Stuck to Finding Incredible Joy, because I was really stuck when that anxiety took a hold of me. It was like literally debilitating, crippling anxiety. And so if anyone experiences that type of anxiety, there is a way to overcome it. And I did try therapy. And for me, it didn't work because I would, during that time, it didn't work because I tried three or four different therapists. And I'm not saying therapy doesn't work. It works for some situations, but for me, it was all talk and just talking. But when I actually worked with a life coaching is all about goal setting and helping you and holding you accountable and lifting you up and, getting you from where you are now to where you want to be. And then in my programs, I also do the back end, what's holding you back in the past and lifting you up and getting you where you want to be. So if I didn't, like I said before, if I didn't work with the coaches that I work with, I wouldn't have found incredible joy after being stuck for so long.
So describe to us what you mean when you say incredible joy.
So for me,
what does that look like?
Yeah. So I'll give you an example. So in August 25th, to be exact, last year, I got into a horrific car accident and my car was totaled. Someone had hit me and I ended up breaking my tailbone. And in that, it was like a week, about 2 weeks, I was in such pain, because not to sound graphic, but every time I would go to the bathroom, it would be horrific pain. And I ended up in the hospital twice, the urgent care once. And thankfully, I'm doing so much better. And it was just very trying time, because I, before that, would exercise 6 days a week at my gym classes. I was doing hardcore exercises. And if someone is into fitness, you would understand, because it was fitness helped my mindset too. So I couldn't do any of that. And then I was also on leave of absence from work. So during that time, I really had to shift my mentality, and I had to use the tools that had helped, that I had learned from my coaches, and really use them and really realize that there is more to life than just, being miserable. This ultimately, the situation isn't the problem. It's how we handle the situation that causes the problem. So my car accident, and I was just actually telling a friend of mine who's also a business friend of mine, and I was telling her that you can see the car accident scene from my apartment window, because it happened right in front of my apartment. And now I thought that's going to be so challenge, devastating to me, so difficult to see that accident scene every day. But when I look at it, I think of gratitude, and it's really, in order to enjoy life, you have to have joyful moments, and look for those. Look for sunsets that can light you up. Look for those pivotal moments that bring you joy, whether it's having a dance party at your house, or whether it's just celebrating small moments, and really be present.
Yeah, being present is something that we have had to learn or relearn in the last 2 years, and life has changed. I love what you're saying about gratitude and just looking. I love it personally. I love a beautiful sunset. So
yeah, they're the best.
That's making me happy right now. There's joy coming up for me right now. As we begin to wrap up the show, can you share how our listeners can stay connected with you if they'd like to do so?
Yeah, definitely. So if this all resonates with you, and through my coaching, what I really ultimately do, my mission is to help women find joy in their career and their life. And I've also, because I am a teacher, I have a soft spot for teachers. So if there's teacher listeners out there, I would come my way. And the way that you can find me is through my website, which is www.lovelifenowcoaching. And there is a contact me section where you can contact me and we can chat further, and I can see how I can best support you.
Now, how'd you land on the name Love Life Coaching?
So the way that I landed on Love Life Now Coaching is, I'll be honest, I'm very indecisive. My friends are like, just make a decision already. My mother says the same thing. But one of the things, when I had that aha moment, and then my first coach actually kept telling, at that time, she was like, you would be great as a coach. I was like, nah. And then when I had that aha moment, and I'm like, Love Life Now, really? Because we don't know what could happen tomorrow. Like that car accident, if the car had hit me any further or any closer to my door, I probably wouldn't have made it. So really, we don't know what the next moment of our life could bring us. So really love your life now, because it's so precious. Just like you had said, Simone, about how when, with everything that's been going on the last 2 years, life is so precious. So we have to really love life now.
Awesome. What a wonderful way to wrap up our episode. Meena, thanks so much for being a guest on the Power of Owning Your Career podcast.
Thank you so much, Simone, for having me. And thanks again to all the listeners.
I sincerely hope that you enjoyed this week's empowering career story on the podcast. If you did, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Wherever you listen to the podcast, be sure that you are subscribing and that you rate and review the podcast. It's so important as we continue to spread the word of career empowerment. In addition, you can head over to the LinkedIn platform and join the Power of Owning Your Career discussion group. There you can have access to the guests who have been on the podcast, as well as others listening to the podcast, as well as myself, where we can continue the conversation. I hope to see you on that platform. You can also email me at pooyc@simonemorris.com if you have a suggestion for guest or a message that you want me to hear personally. Thanks so much, and make it an inspiring, empowering week in your career.